So 3 years ago, I also stood on stage at the Netcentric Summit together with Fritz, and there I talked about data and beer and how you could misinterpret data and then draw very, very bad conclusions. At that time, I was a client, or at least a prospect slash client. And here I am today again, and now as a Netcentric Co. I joined Netcentric August 1st, Amsterdam office, and I'm a marketing technology consultant. Before that, I worked in telecommunications for 15 years. And those 15 years, about 10 of them, I was an Adobe client. And also participated in numerous implementations of Experience Manager, Analytics, Data Workbench, Audience Manager, and Target. So even though all of these implementations were within the same group of companies, none of these implementations was the same. And that wasn't because the Adobe product was any different. It was because the surrounding that we put the Adobe products in was. So what about this echo chamber? If we look at the definition, it's an environment in which a person encounters only beliefs or opinions that coincide with their own. And so that their existing views are reinforced and alternative ideas are not reconsidered. So what about Adobe echo chamber, you might think? What I will show you today is how I look at the types of technology that Adobe and others bring to organizations, and what this technology also forces the organization to change. Because there will be changes throughout the whole organization. When I proposed the topic of this talk a few weeks ago, I was really confident about what it would be about, but it turned out that it could go either other way. You know, it's a broad topic, and you can approach it in multiple ways. So the challenge turned out to be that it can easily turn out into multiple topics. So I'm going to make sure that at least I will fuel some follow-up discussions around pathways, about portfolio, just more philosophical ones. And I also know that you can approach this topic in multiple ways. So it could be that you have a different view, or you would take a different angle when discussing this. So please feel free, interrupt, ask questions, or just heckle me if you have any need to. And what triggered me to do this talk was the time that I spent at the Adobe Summit as a client. So you would sit there. It was a great event to go to. You would meet peers. You could talk to US product managers. You could hang at the Netcentric booth and drink some gin and tonics. It was all good. And don't get me wrong, I really, really liked that. But when I was looking at these product demos and feature demos, it just didn't really relate to me, and I missed some ingredients. Of course, you do have to go to breakout sessions where experts talk about things. Great. And then you would have these demo sessions. Usually they would go something like this. So product manager would come on stage and explain a big use case that would span across 3, 4, 5, maybe 6-point solutions. An asset would be created in Photoshop. Then she would go, or he would go into AEM and pick up that asset. Then use Sensei to apply smart tags and maybe slice and crop it a bit so that it could be applicable for all screen sizes. Then the image would be dropped in an email template. Then a segment would be created in Audience Manager. Then an A/B test would be set up in Target. Then, of course, the mobile app had to be updated. That was also done. An email campaign was created. Then the email campaign was sent. Dashboard was created to show open clicks and other engagement metrics from the email. Then a banner would be placed on a blog where you could buy sneakers, and so forth. This one person on stage was capable of doing everything where back at home I needed 15 people to do. Amazing. And not just people that knew each other by name, but external agencies, suppliers, vendors, and they would use Jira to track everything. If I had to do a deploy of an app, even just content, I needed budget approved, a release manager, and a plan, and then fingers crossed that everything went well. I just couldn't relate to this, it was too far away from me. And of course, I understand you cannot have 15 people on a stage doing a demo. You know, that would be quite a thing. But for me, it just didn't address one of the key ingredients that's also really important for the success of these kinds of use cases, and that's the complexity of organizations. In particular, large global corporate organizations. You know, these big companies with lots of legacy systems, different setups per market, setups per business unit. The ones that are most likely to go for a platform like Adobe. That's the nice squeeze that we're in. Again, the technology that was demoed was top-notch, don't get me wrong. But I really missed that one thing. I just couldn't translate it back into the reality that I was living in. We were not ready for this. And again, no use of Jira, you know, that's amazing. What started years ago as a lot of point solutions with controlled impact when you deployed them has evolved into a real platform. A platform that also claims a different kind of role within your organization and that forces the user to adjust to be able to really get value out of that whole platform. And of course, it's not just the case with Adobe. You know, this is applicable to all the players out there. During a chat with someone this week about challenges that they had about implementing Sitecore, they had the same issue. Trust me, it wasn't the tech, it's people and it's process. And where you might have looked at these point solutions years ago in isolation, you now have to zoom out and look at the bigger picture. So this means cross-platform, cross-technology, cross-departments, cross-device, and sometimes cross-budget line, which is where politics kicks in. So no room for chambers, no rooms for bubbles. Just a quick check to see who we have in the room. I see a lot of Netcentricos. Raise hands. Yeah. Adobe. Yeah, recognize you. I see some Cognizant as well. More? No? People on the client side using Adobe? Great, perfect. None of the above? No? Okay. So at least all the Netcentricos know that within the offices that we have, Adobe is talk of the town. Every day we interact with Adobe, you know, for their services or their products. It's just Adobe. And because of this focus, we are the go-to experts, and everyone has a common view on experience platform, digital analytics, marketing automation, etc. So we're also used to have the same kind of vocabulary that Adobe uses. Digital experience, customer journey, capabilities, traits, those kinds of terms. And even though they're not exclusive to Adobe, they do have a specific meaning within the Adobe context. Bit of background. This is the Kauwgomballenfabriek in Amsterdam. It's an old chewing gum factory, and this is the office that we have in Amsterdam, shared with our colleagues from Cognizant and Mirabeau. The nice thing of this building is there is a digital studio where we usually sit with flex desks, where they have cool prototypes of magic mirrors where you can try on different clothes, or you can use AI to see if you have to water your plants in a smart garden. There's a lot of cool techie stuff happening over there. Where the talk of the town is Adobe in our offices, over there it isn't. It's our office, yeah. One of the founders. I'm not sure what's happening there. And of course, you know, there's a few people with purple keycords or stickers on their MacBook that will talk Adobe, but that's just a few. And listening to our sister and our mother, we hear something else. Also, you know, remember that Cognizant has a different background where they are commonly talking to the more traditional IT side of the house, and Mirabeau is mainly on human-centric design. They meet in the middle, that's where we are. If you Google for Adobe on mirabeau.nl, I've excluded the job site, otherwise it doesn't work. You have 4 results. If we would search for, the clicker works, Sitecore, it already gives you 99. And Episerver will give you 76. Adobe on Cognizant.com, 452. Very good, Mark. Nothing wrong with your eyes. Yes. The clicker is not really working. Sitecore will give you 93. But Salesforce will give you 620. And Pega leading with 2,680. So, by the way, searching for Sitecore, Salesforce, Pega, Episerver on netcentric.biz. How much? 0. So we might want to do something with that, you know, SEO-wise, drag in some traffic. As you might have noticed, the different vendors that I'm mentioning are not offering the same type of solutions. They have different areas that they cover within this digital field. They are all trying to facilitate customer experience management, as Adobe and us are calling it. So they're all trying to move into that same space, but do they also offer the same set of capabilities? And can you just compare them, score them? Let's say you're the lead of a tender from procurement, can you just jam it into an Excel and send it out, and then we easily score it and they make their decision? I believe the short answer is no. You can't do that. Most of them will have some core capabilities around data, but logic, presentation, you know, just basic stuff that you need. But the center of gravity per vendor differs. And for instance, which also makes sense, by the way, because they're moving to the same spot, but they have different starting points. Some, like Salesforce, have more core strengths towards CRM, lead management, but they're really immature if you look at web content management, web analytics. And others have more of an ERP and data background, like SAP. By the way, it's always good to mention that Salesforce.com has been built with AEM. By a Dutch guy, yeah. So always leave this slide in. Where's the plus? Where's my plus? So in the keynote this morning by Gerard and Elian, also this overview was shown. So this shows that Adobe has the most complete set of capability within this customer experience management domain. Any other player in this domain is not checking the boxes. So this is what analysts are saying in their magic quadrants and in their waves. And yes, in most of the domains, Adobe is the leader. So these domains are digital experience, marketing, content, analytics, advertising, and commerce. But this overview doesn't show you smaller competitors in these domains. You will have small competitors that just have a point solution there, but they don't offer this full platform solution. And does that also mean that Adobe or the Adobe Experience Cloud is the best fit for every organization? And what selection criteria are really important to take into account? And how does Adobe then hold up to the competition? Of course, you don't need to have a you do need to have a foundation of requirements, business and technical requirements, to see if a vendor is suitable for you as an organization. But you know, for instance, if I look at the web CMS RFIs that I had on my desk the last 6 months, they still have technical requirements like should support iframe, possibility to add a pop-up, those things. So I do think that, you know, our colleague Mark, sitting over there, said it quite well. We want to talk to people, not to Excel. I like that quote. So what should we talk about then, if we talk to these people, rather than these Excels? So given the maturity of the Adobe platform, the offering, I personally believe it's important to look close to what an organization is actually asking or what their actual need is. So what are they trying to achieve? How are they organized? How open are they towards the idea of change? Both technical and cultural change. Those are important ingredients on top of the tech. Let's say this is an organization that has a need, and that need is visualized by this block. Try to keep it simple. So there's a gap in their ecosystem. So if you would just score a solution in an Excel, it could give you something like this. And of course, we can make this fit with customizations, creative hacks, all options. So option 1, we add stuff, fits. Option 2, we take away stuff, fits again. So we all know that this is not ideal, and it will break the first time that we do an upgrade, or we roll to a new version, or we add stuff. Hope your phone didn't break. We add stuff to the ecosystem. And what if that one person that did this creative hack leaves your organization without properly documenting it? That happens a lot. And this is just looking at it from a technical perspective. So what if this square in the ecosystem is not what it turned out to be? What if you dive into it and it appears to be this? So you take off all these layers. So let's say this is a corporation in 4 markets. And if you look at it from a central perspective, it would look like that one square. But then you dive into the needs of these local markets, and they would differ. Does the same solution still apply? And bear with me, what if these gaps are not just technical? What if market 2 has a need for process changes? And what if market 4 needs to have new competences bring on board, people? So if you layer all these things, it's a really complex, 3-dimensional, multi-layered puzzle that you need to solve. And with these types of corporations that we are engaged with, and that we want to help with the digital journey, multiply this. They're complex. This beautiful slide, which I love, this is in the category, if you can't beat them, confuse them. Convince them, confuse them. I always forget the phrase. This slide was made by a cognizant colleague of ours to show a client how you could merge and try to move into this one platform setup. And how you would bring all the tooling across the markets into one platform. This doesn't even start to show the reality that we found when we hit the ground. It's worse, but it's a good starting point. So now imagine you are the CEO of this company. And the company has 32 ERP systems and 5 different web CMSs. And of course, a different web CMS for commerce and one for your marketing side. No shared digital identity solution. No tag manager. So how would you move all of these local markets into that top right corner? And do you even want to push them all into the top right corner? Does it make sense? So when advising our customers on these challenges, it's important to get a good understanding of their real needs. On central, but also on a business level. I'm going to speed up a bit because now we've lost quite some time. So what if at central they will buy a really nice Swiss Army knife and then distribute it to the business units? And then business units only use the magnifying glass and the toothpick. That happens quite a lot. So it's a real challenge to see if there's a platform need and that it can also scale across an organization. So sometimes a best-of-breed solution could be sufficient for certain areas in a business. So whatever the route is, it's still important that you take the people aspect into account. So Michael Pimpsel from Adobe and his team did a great piece of research on digital trends last year. So the research starts with the statement that corporations are still struggling to deliver. Why? The tech is there, so must be the people and the enablement and the processes around it, right? So according to, and I think this is Adobe's own research, is that 42% indicate that inability to share data and manage experience across channels are the greatest barriers to deliver these personalized experiences. How do I break silos? How do best-in-class companies organize in the face of digital disruption? Those kinds of questions are answers in this report. And their research focuses on structure, people, and process. And if you read between the lines, it's all about shared knowledge. It's about shared KPIs. It's about shared processes. That means shared responsibilities. Simple as that. And they uncovered 3 structural elements that are labeled Center of Excellence, Cross-Journey Team, and Agile Marketing Team, from low maturity all the way to high. For each of these structures, they describe the keys to success, and they have use cases like this one. This is from a European telco, not going to name which one. And within this structure, you could see that a more mature market could develop a best practice and then, through the Center of Excellence, provide a blueprint to the other markets. So this is just one of the 3 structures that's defined, but most importantly, there are also some considerations that you need to take into account for all of them. In the end, it's important to understand that the goal that the organization is aiming at and what their starting point is. Things like where P&L responsibilities lie in the organization, and that could have a real impact on the feasibility of an envisioned target state. So if you're interested in the research, I can share it with you. Just give me a ping. So back to this product side of the equation. As mentioned before, it is really important to look at the bigger picture. If we look at Adobe's digital foundation, yeah? Let's talk about it. So for instance, it shows how it could work if you're a company that has all these components and all these point solutions at hand. It's point solutions, not platform. That's also. In my previous job, we didn't have campaign. We had IBM campaign. You still wanted to do this. You still had all these use cases. You wanted to flow through this. And in some markets, we didn't have audience manager. We had a different DMP or no DMP. Yes, Google will tell you that you can have all these point solutions and then compare them to something else. AEM, Audience Manager, Target, Analytics, of course. But what will that tell you? You need to make a decision what platform you're going to choose, not point solutions. So organizations that are really serious about this won't find the answers here. It will give you an idea of the feature set of a point solution, but it doesn't tell you anything about the broader vision and strategy around a platform. And what impact it also will have on your organization that you need to address to get value out of this. So to uncover that, we need to talk to people, not to Excel. And if we look at this example again, I don't believe that these complex and matrixed organizations should go to that top right corner. But they can use that as a North Star or a strategic vessel to put initiatives in and drive change. That makes sense. Again, it's not just about the technology, it's also about the people, processes, and sometimes budget. If you don't address them, you will fail. And it's also interesting to see what the future will bring. And each of these players that we saw on the previous slides are moving targets. And they're all trying to find the path to be in the top right corner of all these magic quadrants and waves. So even though there is already an overlap, a lot of these players are not alone, and they position themselves also next to each other. This is an example of Pega, where they state that they complement Adobe. I'm going to skip this one. That they are complementing Adobe with capabilities. But both are still constantly evolving, and these types of pictures will constantly change. So it's up to us to also be aware of all these changes. This morning, Jean-Michel and Conrad, they talked about system of record, open data initiative, experience platform. That's, if Adobe really puts this thing out there in the field, then this picture will change. There's no need for Pega in this picture anymore. It will be in that platform. So last night at the bar, I also had a chat with someone from Adobe, and I think we need to start a test or a poll or a game somewhere. And the guess is which web CMS is going to be acquired by Salesforce this year. Bets are on. Let's start a poll. So all of these are moving targets. And they're all trying to complete this capability toolkit to enable businesses to do customer experience management. And for us as Netcentric, it's important that we are ready to support that broader question, and that we are also able to help customers with this new proposition from Adobe. So we know that Adobe will move, and that they will start claiming different roles within organizations. And this is also where we should use the skills of our mother and our sisters and our brothers across the group, so that we can support those requests. And remember, an overlapping capabilities is not always a bad thing. Especially in complex organizations, you will find different technical setups and levels of maturity across the business. This one platform is a good strategy, but it's really hard to reach. So stay updated on current affairs. Don't just look at best fit on technical requirements. Talk to people, not to Excel. What's the real ask? What are they looking for? And we as Netcentric should also be able to understand the whole ecosystem. And yes, there are clear boundaries where our product expertise stops, but we should be able to at least see how the cloud fits in a broader ecosystem so that our clients can get the most value out of it. Thank you.